All right, so overcrowding at high schools has become a pretty large issue here in Killeen ISD, with enrollment numbers of all the high schools exceeding 2,000 students at all four public high schools. All four of these public high schools also are now having to use portable classrooms because of that extended growth. And currently, three of those schools are over their suggested capacity when they were initially built. Do you believe that there is a need for a fifth high school? Why or why not?
Yes. We live in what most would consider a military town, which basically means our growth is based on our military's growth. President Trump just announced that he wants to spend roughly $50 billion to better keep our country safe. And so the logic points to that if we're going to spend $50 billion on keeping this country safe, our military is probably going to keep growing. And so the fact that we've had 3 Walmarts built in Killeen in the past year is an indication that Walmart knows that we need a fifth high school. The fact that they're building a new HEB. HEB knows that we need a new high school because we're growing. So I think there is little doubt that we need a fifth high school. Now, from my understanding, what's being proposed is to turn the Career and Technology Center into a fifth high school or to build a fifth high school elsewhere. And first off, I'm opposed to any solution that is going to convert the Career and Technology Center into anything other than a Career and Technology Center. It's 2017. We live in a digital age. And the fact that we're really considering limiting access to cutting edge educational tools to our children so we can accommodate more children and give them a more customary style of learning as opposed to giving them the skills that they're going to need to compete in the workplace of tomorrow. Right now, America ranks roughly 14th in education. Number 1 and 2 are South Korea and Japan. What do they have in common? We buy everything from South Korea and Japan, and so that's a direct indication that their educational system is putting out a better product. And we believe they're putting out a better product because we want to buy our products from people who are educated by them, as opposed to educating Americans to have those exact same skills so they can better compete. And so I definitely feel that we need a fifth school, but what we should be considering is turning the Career and Technology Center into a fully technical high school. And so children can go there and get an education that's going to benefit them in tomorrow's workforce. And then once we do that, we need to be looking for the funds to build another technical high school because this city is not going to stop growing, nor do we want it to stop growing. I've been here long enough to see that when our country goes to war, people move away from the city and everyone suffers. And then when we're at times of peace, people moving back to the city and businesses can feed their families. And so we want the military to keep growing. And if we really want that, then we have to be able to make sure that every child that comes through our educational system is getting tomorrow's education, not the education of now.
KISD high schools have had a struggle in their cafeterias with not being able to accommodate feeding all of their students during lunchtime, prompting the district to have open campus lunch periods. Many of these students are leaving campus and usually typically walk to go and get their food. Accidents and altercations have happened over the last 2 years during this time. What solutions do you think would be best to feed the students in KISD schools while preventing some of these altercations and accidents from happening?
Okay, so the first issue is how we're going to feed all of our children. And so we're dealing with an issue of we don't have the human capital, meaning we don't have enough employees to accommodate that, and we don't have the space to fit everyone. And so let's take a corporate point of view on this. If a corporation does not have the current infrastructure to accommodate the needs, then we outsource. We have vendors, we have food trucks, we have local businesses who could easily help supplement some of that shortfall. And so what I'm proposing is we can allow food trucks to maybe line up outside of some of these schools so these children have an opportunity to have another option where they don't have to leave the physical campus And so they're getting what they need. Jobs are being made in the city as well. And as a parent, I can go and work 40 to 60 hours a week knowing that my child is where they should be when they should be there. Because I'm doing everything I can to give my child opportunity, and I need our school district to work with me to make sure that my 9th or 10th grader is where they need to be. And so we can lean on our resources that we have to make sure that our children are being fed, and then we can better evaluate ways to keep our children safe while they're on campus, and those that do have the opportunity to leave campus are safe as well.
You mentioned something that kind of ties into my next question, which is that various reports of on and on-campus fights have occurred over the last year or so, especially during the fall semester, not necessarily so much this semester in comparison. And a lot of these fights are happening during open campus lunch periods as well as after school. How do you think the district and local police departments can work more cohesively together to prevent these school fights from happening throughout KISD after school and during lunch?
Well, first, it starts with both KISD doing everything it can to prevent violence. And then it starts with KPD doing everything they can to react when violence is taking place. I went to Killeen High School, and I went to the 9th grade center. As a freshman, we didn't have the option to have an open campus, and we were better off for it. As a sophomore, we then got that option. But they put us in a controlled environment to make sure that we were safe. And it worked, because we never went to other schools and had fights with other students. We weren't drag racing and doing all types of things during our lunch period, because we were being supervised. And we have to understand that we're dealing with children here, so we have to supervise our children. And so what KISD can do is we need to focus on conflict resolution. Your child is mandated to get 12 years of math, reading, and writing, and they don't get any conflict resolution skills. And you know what happens when a child doesn't learn how to deal with conflict as a child? They turn into an adult that doesn't know how to deal with conflict, and then you have crime. Last year we had roughly 16 murders. That's what happens when you don't teach children to resolve conflict and they turn into adults who have conflict. Your child may go their entire adult life and never use some of the information that they learn in the public school system. But there's not a set of circumstances that exist where this child will not have to deal with some sort of conflict. And so we cannot prevent murder until we learn to prevent the conflict, because murders are a result of conflict. Violence is a result of conflict. And so no one can predict when conflict is going to happen. But we can understand as a city what causes conflict and better equip our children starting at a very young age to understand that they can talk to one another, that there are other alternatives to violence. And so when they are faced with a set of circumstances that can lead to violence, they can handle it in a rational manner and no one gets hurt. As far as KPD is concerned, one of the things that they've said is they can't solve any of these murders because no one is talking, which I completely understand. It's a difficult job to solve any sort of crime without some sort of information. And so what I'm asking KPD to do is you have to instill the trust into the people of our city so a partnership is formed, so people are willing to come forward and give you the information that you need to solve these crimes. Because a lot of people aren't talking because they're afraid. We had 16 murders last year, I believe, and I think 15 of them were unsolved. That doesn't make the people feel safe at all. People are trying not to be number 17 as opposed to trying to help solve murder 14. And so with conflict resolution in KISD, we can better equip our children to deal with conflict, and with better training for our police officers, we can make sure that the public trusts them enough that the public wants to come forward with each and every piece of information. So families like Eric Hill and Butch Polite can get the justice that they should be getting and we don't have to worry about going to more funerals than graduations.
Special education has been a point of needed improvement in KISD, and in 2015 the district was investigated for a number of reasons, including needing adjustments to its policies on special education, its referral process to give students the services they needed, and the lack of consistent student tracking. As of January in 2017, the district had reached compliance as far as TEA standards are concerned. What changes and adjustments do you believe the district will need to do to continue to improve its special education programs?
That's a very tough question. First off, we have to acknowledge that our special educators probably have the hardest job in the entire school system, you know? And it's not fair to point the finger at any of their processes and say that it's not working. Because although it may not be working, those people are showing up every day trying to make it work. And so we need to understand what barriers that they have that are preventing them from giving the children the type of education that they should be getting. I like to believe that better training will help and more resources will help. But more importantly, in order to work in special education, you have to be a special type of person. You have to have a special type of heart. It's an extremely difficult job. And so once we acknowledge that the people that are doing these jobs are really, really special type of people and they want to be in these roles, then we can begin to better understand the things that they deal with day in and day out. I was a substitute teacher in KISD, and I subbed in several special education settings. And it's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother world. But it's a world that needs more transparency so people better understand these needs. Back in 2002, Cedric Napoleon was a student in KISD, and he passed away in a classroom in a special education setting. I don't think that the woman who was his teacher meant to cause him any harm, but clearly the training that she had received was not beneficial to the job that needed to be done. And so I didn't need to read a report in 2015 to understand that we have to reform our special education process. I knew that back in 2002. But now that the whole city is watching and they're all aware that our special educators need help, they don't need finger pointing, they don't need blame, they need help so they can meet these children's needs. And once we fully accept that, we have to spare no expense to make sure that they're getting that help. Because our most important resource is our children.
And our last question is, in January, the TEA released a preliminary A through F rating for all of its schools and school districts throughout the state. Many of the KISD schools received D and F grades in specific categories. How do you hope to plan to help the school board to improve these ratings as they go forward?
When I saw the article in the paper with the ratings, it saddened me. You know, as a product of KISD, it hurts a lot. It's almost like someone telling you that your parents aren't very good, but you love your parents. And you know your parents did everything that they could. And then the independent party says, you know, you don't have very good parents. And I know that's not true. And so I don't think it's fair that we have someone that can audit and rate our system based on a state standard, because we deal with problems in our educational system that no other district in the state has to deal with. We live in a military town. We have children coming and going each and every day. And so we're being held to the same standard as school districts who have something that we don't have called continuity. They have children who may spend their whole entire educational life in the same school district. And then they're comparing those children to children that may spend 8-9 months in our district. One of the lowest grades that we received was in the post-secondary readiness area. And that's a direct result of, we have children that come from other school districts that may not have the foundation that we have in KISD, but once they're here, they're ours. So then KISD is charged with the task of getting this child where it needs to be in a short amount of time. And guess what? Mom and dad may be overseas for 6 months to a year at a time. So mom and dad can't even be there to positively reinforce everything that this child needs. Primarily because they're making sacrifices to serve our country. And so it's really, really not fair to hold us to the exact same standards because we have a different child here. And so, do we need to improve? Sure we do. Are there areas of opportunities? Of course there are. So what we can do is we can take a look at those other districts who are excelling in the areas that we're not. And we can shamelessly borrow from them. You know, those districts don't have better children than us. They have a better system. They don't have smarter children than we do. They have smarter processes. And so if you want to be the best, and that should be our goal, we want to have the best educational system in the city, in the state, in the world. That's our goal. Whether or not we hit that goal is not as important as the fact that we're striving for that goal. And so based on that, we got to do everything we can to make sure the product that we're putting out is the best product possibly. And our product is our children. It's our greatest resource. But we can't do that by pointing the finger and over-scrutinizing the very people who are showing up every single day to make a sacrifice that most of us would never make to make sure our children are being educated. And then we have to overcompensate for those parents who are making a sacrifice to make sure that we can be a free nation. And so we need to take a hard look at what's working in other areas and then better adjust that particular educational model to adjust the needs that we have here. And once we do that, I'm sure that our scores will be much, much higher. But I don't want us to get discouraged by those scores because we're not any other school district. And we should have a school system rating that's based on a military town and the problems that we face. But until we do that, until we get that, we got to do everything we can to make sure that the rating system that is in place makes us look good. Because the rating system made us look not so good. And I know that we're much, much better than that.